that, Trey Hendrickson, again, 30 years old. And it's one of these deals where the guys who are very young are getting paid these huge contracts, and these guys are saying, we're still productive. Hendrickson had 17.5 sacks each of the last 2 years, and he wants to get paid as well. He feels like he is not at the end of his career and deserves that big money. So, again, it's these players that are sort of on that middle ground looking to get that top payday where teams are saying, are you still going to be that player at the end of this contract? Really interesting situation for all three players, and I can't help but point out those similarities.
Yeah, what you said there at the end, I think, is the most intriguing part. The teams are more toward the end of the contracts, not right now. They would all agree that these players are producing at a high level right now, but it is like down the road. RC, it does sound like maybe things are trending in a better direction with Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals. What do you think is ultimately the best resolution there, though?
Well, I think the best resolution is for Trey Hendrickson to be a part of the Cincinnati Bengals this year, for him to get an extension and get more money added to a contract, which he's earned. But the thing is, you aren't Micah, right? You aren't Myles Garrett. And that's no knock on Trey Hendrickson. He's an all-pro. He's one of the best doing what he does in this league. But I think when you get into what's basically an open marriage, right? When you say, hey, we can go out and seek others to join this union, and nobody's willing to bite at a price that the Cincinnati Bengals were comfortable with or offer Trey Hendrickson the sort of contract he's comfortable with. Now you come back and say, hey, you know what? We might be best for each other. We might be best in our union, in this duo, in this couple. And I believe the Cincinnati Bengals know they're better when he's on the field with them. And also Trey Hendrickson now knows, okay, I might not get that top money, but I can get enough money to make me feel whole for the things I've accomplished and will accomplish going forward.
RC, as always, your analogies hit. Like, the open marriage analogy there is really good. Like, man, I don't know that many people that like go out seeking an open marriage and don't have any other suitors. But then again, I don't know much about it. So they're like, please move on. Okay.
I'm sorry.
You mentioned Micah Parsons. Let's talk about him. Welcome to NFL Live Campsite. We're going camping. There's a tent over there, but in the middle of your screen, you see Aaron Rodgers at Steelers mini camp. That's where he's getting to know his new team this week. You see him out there in the new jersey. Adam Schefter will tell you how it's all going in Pittsburgh. Plus, Peter Schrager gives you an update on how he thinks it's going to go in the future. Now, Trevor Lawrence is at Jags mini camp. His new offensive and defensive weapon is there in the fold. Travis Hunter, you'll hear from Lawrence a little later on in the show. And also, we stopped by Cowboys mini camp. You see Dak out there. Dak and company are ready to go. You're going to hear from him on how the receivers are doing and a little bit more on how this is actually great for CeeDee Lamb. Makes a lot of sense. We're so glad that you're with us. Oh, we are in a tent. Thank you for that. I'm glad that happened that way. I wonder what it would be like to go camping with you guys. Peter Schrager, Andrew Hawkins, Adam Schefter here for the hour. So much happening around the league, and you're in the right spot to hear about all of it with us today. Let's begin with the Bengals, you guys. That's where we go first. Star pass rusher Trey Hendrickson is not present for minicamp as he awaits a new deal in Cincinnati. And then Shamar Stewart, who they drafted to bolster their D-line, had been there. He's now left in the midst of a contract dispute. More on that in moments. But first, Bengals head coach Zach Taylor was asked about Shamar Stewart earlier today.
I think for all the rookies, you'd like them to be on the field, but certainly there's things that happen over the course of an NFL career, and this is one of them right now. So he's been in the meetings. He's been positive in that way. He's been learning. He's been a good learner. And we look forward to getting him back on the field quickly. There's education that happens with all the rookies that we do our best to educate them. Number one, we want to protect our team in our locker room. And so I understand when there's frustration there, but that's how he chose to do it, and that's his prerogative. And we look forward to getting him back in the fold.
I know every head coach in the NFL has to talk about contract stuff, but I feel like Zach Taylor's had to do more of it than the other coaches. He's gotten really good at it. Adam, what more can you tell us about Shamar Stewart's contract talks?
Well, this is an unusual situation. It should not be difficult to get a deal done with a rookie first-round draft pick, and yet in this particular case, for various reasons, it is. We start out with the fact that the Bengals are trying to get language that they haven't had in their contracts before that other teams have used that would void guarantees if essentially he got cut at some point during his career. Also, Shamar Stewart has hesitated and refused to sign an injury waiver, which most rookies just go out and sign, that protects them in the event of injury at a minicamp. So he hasn't signed the waiver. They've asked for language that other teams have used that they haven't used before, and it's led to a situation where today Shamar Stewart removed himself from mandatory minicamp when some would have wondered why he was even there to begin with, being that he hadn't signed his contract or signed the waiver. And so this whole situation has gotten more and more muddled as it has gone along and shows no signs of ending soon, despite the fact that it should be relatively simple to sign a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, to just add on to what Adam's saying, he's spot on. Look, they had a draft pick 18th overall and 28th overall the last 2 years. Those guys didn't have this language in their contract. That's the real point here. The other issue is, hey, if Jamar Chase doesn't have this language and he signed a deal, and T. Higgins doesn't have this language and he just signed a deal with you guys as recent as March, why should Shamar have to sign that deal in June? Last but not least, Trey Hendrickson is still going and is not there, and the Shamar Stewart team is watching that closely. Hey, if you do figure out a new deal for Trey Hendrickson and you do include that language, well, we'll be open to sign with the new language, but why should Shamar Stewart, and this is from the player side, why should he be the guinea pig in all this and be the first person in Bengals franchise history to have to sign this deal when there were deals done as recent as March with some mega stars?
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum, and I'm glad you illustrated all that, Peter. Hawk, let's talk about the way that Cincinnati's front office has prioritized contracts so far this offseason. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it puts a lot of pressure on the organization, and it is such a trickle-down effect. And not just the organization. Look, they made the decision to bring in Higgins and Chase on really big deals. They typically don't pay two wide receivers those amounts of money, but they're trying to keep their quarterback and Joe Burrow happy. So I do think for him, it puts a little pressure there as well. And that's where the trickle down happens. Because they make that decision, it makes it a little tougher for the Trey Hendrickson situation. And then Shamar Stewart, who they draft, which is a part of probably their insurance policy on Trey Hendrickson. Now that's muddied. So it will be interesting heading into the season because this is a distraction. It shouldn't be. And if it lingers in the training camp for Cincinnati, a smaller market, to have the national headlines be something like this permeate throughout the locker room, you hope that it doesn't have any hangover into when the real games start being played.
Yeah, some of the numbers you just saw on the screen there illustrated just how great that Bengals offense was. We know about that. It was a championship-level offense. The defense, though, however, certainly the priority or should be going forward. The Bengals allowed 35 points 5 times last season. You're not going to win games that way. All right, time now for some top stories. Adam Schefter, what's going on with T.J. Watt?
Trey Hendrickson is next up. This is, again, one of the obvious, holdout candidates here. He has requested a trade or a new deal and has gotten neither so far from the Bengals. If I were the Bengals, I would simply pay their by far best defender and give him what the market says and not play around with another big-time player on a contract. Of note, the report from ESPN yesterday was that the Bengals and Hendrickson's camp have finally re-engaged on contract negotiations. Someone's going to blink at some point in that deal. I don't think it ends up happening. I would lean towards someone blinks and there's no trade. It has been so messy in Cincinnati, you kind of can't rule it out as a possibility that a trade does happen. Hendrickson's production has been nutty the past 2 seasons. Now, he's not that great of a run defender. He's older than some of the other players on this list or other top edges, so maybe the market's like 36, 37, or maybe he settles for like 32, 33. But that is worth noting. And again, because you've got the Micah deal coming down the pipeline, the Cowboys wouldn't pay Trey Hendrickson. I think you might be able to convince Trey of, hey, we're not going to extend you, but we promise we're not going to franchise tag you, and you get to go be a free agent after this year, which is still the threat the Bengals have of 2 years of franchise tags if they wanted to go down that path. You would still have to get the Bengals to say yes to a trade, which means you're paying a premium for that, so I wouldn't get my hopes up there. Also of note for the Bengals, they are in a rare rookie contract dispute with first-rounder Shamar Stewart because they're trying to add void years or void language to his deal that other teams do, but the Bengals have never used. Stewart says, I'm not going to be your first person to say yes to this, and he skipped minicamp and left early. It's been a disaster in Cincinnati again. I've seen wild ideas of he could go back to the draft. They could trade him. No, they're not. They're not going to do that. There's zero chance Stewart never signs and goes back to the draft. There's zero chance the Bengals trade Shamar Stewart because they have nobody else proven outside of Hendrickson as it is, because Miles Murphy has been a disappointment so far. A trade is not going to happen, so don't let the bait fool you otherwise. So name a player who you want to trade for. Go ahead and sound off in the comments of today's show.